Okay, my name is Leo Zagami. I'm 37 and this is my story. And my story goes back to the fact that because of my family tradition I joined various secret societies during the course of my life, and I found myself involved in what is known as the New World Order. The New World Order is for some people a way to implement fascism on a global scale. To do this they want to use technology, they want to use means like microchipping and also surveillance technology to control all aspects of our life. Everything is in the hands of the big brother, and this big brother is in the hands of the police, of the military police, of the intelligence, military and civil intelligence, and they are all working these days not for the governments but for the corporates who are keeping together this big business together with certain families and certain banks that have done this for a long time.
How can you prove this New World Order?
Well, my personal experience, I can talk about my personal experience. I was initiated on the 13th of April 1993 in Rome. It was a peculiar time in Italy because the P2 Lodge scandal had erupted and Freemasonry was in turmoil. Grand Master Giuliano Di Bernardo, who is now the Grand Master of the Academy of the Illuminati in Rome, split from the Grand Orient of Italy and was forming his own Gran Loggia Regolare d'Italia, which was the only one recognized by the United Grand Lodge of England. And I found myself initiated by Prince Alliata di Monreale, which is an Italian aristocrat who goes back a long time with his family and my family. We have a relationship of a few hundred years and even some relatives in common. And he is the head, or used to be the head because now he is deceased, the head of the Order of the Sword and the Eagle, which was a Masonic order which I came to belong to. And then he also let's say directed me to what was to become the Monte Carlo Lodge, the Committee Monte Carlo, which was already a lodge and was to become a committee, a Masonic Executive Committee in 1999 that was to have people from all the various Masonic obediences, chivalric orders, secret societies, and work in a way above all these structures as a superstructure within the structure of the Illuminati, with this base in Monte Carlo, and Ezio Giunchiglia, who was the treasurer of the P2 Lodge, had this in mind. And the P2 Lodge position as treasurer was a very important one because the P2 Lodge also was connected with the Vatican Bank. Propaganda 2 was a lodge that was born already at the time of Garibaldi as a lodge propaganda. It was an old lodge, a lodge that existed for over 100 years, and that in the 60s came under the control of Licio Gelli. It was given to him by the Americans of the CIA, so he could control through this lodge all the VIP people in Italy who didn't want their name on the official Masonic list, but propaganda was always a reserved list, so the members were never made public. And the P2 Lodge was also, for that reason, they were members also of the Ecclesia Lodge. Ecclesia Lodge is the lodge inside the Vatican, because there is lodges of Freemasons inside the Vatican called Lodge Ecclesia. And P2 had many members of Lodge Ecclesia amongst them, and it functioned as a trade union between the Jesuits, the New World Order plans that they had, the Americans, CIA, and their own plans for the Gladio, the fighting of communism. And so in a way it functioned as a lodge that was supposed also to do propaganda. So you had journalists, you had writers, musicians, people from the world that could promote what they had, whatever was the topic they wanted to promote. Inside the lodges of the OTO, if you are in Moscow, in Russia, you have the poster of George W. Bush. You have one of Satan next to him, and they say, "Hi Satan, hi Bush." For them, it's like they're very happy that George Bush is such an evil person. For Satanists, the core of it is to create an empire. That's why we used to have this thing, Heil Imperium, when we used to go around our lodges, and people used to salute us with this Heil Imperium, because the P2 became like an imperium. It was such a big myth. Even if the lodge was destroyed by the scandal, the surviving elements and the Committee of Monte Carlo were very powerful, and the P2 still has a big name. So a lot of people are involved with it. Freemasons start at a lower level, like a positive, charity-driven society. You go through your degrees, you go through the first 3 degrees, then you join under the Rite, and it can be emulation, it can be the Scottish Rite, it can be whatever, depends where you are in the world. And when you join then these superior degrees, and also when you make active work in a Grand Lodge, if you are an officer and you reach the high levels as a Grand Officer, and you are in charge of a whole district of Freemasons, then you start becoming more and more conscious that you have contacts with certain forces behind the scenes. These forces influence politics, influence religion, influence all the topics that you shouldn't be discussing in Freemasonry, but they are actually discussed in secret.
Can you name some famous Freemasons who are active in the world politics today?
For example, first of all, we have the father of George Bush, George H. Bush. We have the son of George Bush, who is initiated in the Skull and Bones. We have John Kerry, also initiated in the Skull and Bones. We have people like Kissinger, who used to be in the P2 Monte Carlo Lodge, and is still a very powerful character in world politics. We have people like Gordon Brown or Tony Blair. Gordon Brown was decided to be a prime minister. I remember already when I was in Kirby Lodge in October or November 2003, I already knew that Gordon Brown would become prime minister. That they were using Tony Blair for a period of time until they needed him, and then they would just flush him down the toilet and replace him with somebody that they think was more suitable for the moment. So Gordon Brown was already there at that time. This was said to me by people in Kirby Lodge 2818. Was a lodge full of bankers, people from banks. It was a lodge founded by the Bank of England, and I was part of it for a period of time. It was one of the many lodges I became part of during my course of my years in Freemasonry, because my previous mentor, Principal Liada, said you have to be basically understanding that Italian Freemasonry is divided in many different sections, many different branches. There is many Grand Masters. So the best thing you can do is to go to England and become a member of the United Grand Lodge of England in order to regularize your position. Lodge 2818 has a long story, and it was a very big experience for me to join this lodge for a period of time. Even if I belong to other lodges in Italy for longer periods of time, like the Minerva Lodge and other lodges, the Garibaldi Lodge, I always thought that my experience in London has been a very special one, because it teach me really how the New World Order has in London one of the most important centers. Welcome back to the Kirby Lodge, and there was Julian Rees, the famous Masonic. This is my charter as Retention Primitive de Memphis and Mizraim, and basically this is my Grand Inspector General 33, Souverain Grand Maître Absolute de l'Ordre Égyptien de Mizraim 90, and Grand Conservateur de Memphis 95. This is my charter. given by Dr. Nikolai Friswold in the oratory of Oslo. To get to the people who are really manipulating the whole thing, and those people are the usual families of Zionists and the Vatican, who is supporting them. So you have these people who want to implement the New World Order are a series of knights from the knighthoods recognized by the Vatican, like the Knights of the Holy Sepulchre or the Knights of Malta, the Knights of St. John. These knights are all part of the secret services in America, in the CIA, in the MI6, in the MI5, in England. So these people who belong to these intelligence services have double loyalty, not only to their country but also to a holy order they belong to, and that holy order is under the control of the Pope and under the control of the various leaders of these knighthood orders. There is many knighthood orders also outside of the Vatican that control all sorts of parts of the aristocracy. We have the Royal Order of the Garter in England, which includes all the members of the various European aristocratic bloodlines that are more or less all interconnected with each other. And then you have, for example, for the Austrians, also the Teutonic Knights still exist. And we can say that all these knighthoods have, in a way, they function as a military structure, invisible military structure that is not in the eyes of everybody, but only in the eyes of the people who know what is the significance of this cross put in a certain way, or this other color for this other garment, or whatever. They use special crosses, symbols to recognize each other, like they do in Freemasonry with the square of the compass. Is the most basic thing. Then you have many other degrees and many other symbols to wear, or many other knighthood orders that are connected also to Freemasonry. Freemasonry is born out of the knighthood orders as a necessity to also involve the lower sides of the Western society in this pyramid, and to make them all involved. That's why in England, for example, you have almost, well, in Great Britain, in the whole of Great Britain, almost 500,000 Freemasons. So you have not an elitarian society, but a big society with an elite that sits in the center, ruling all these people